Hello, all you lovely people out there trying to make the world a better place. Welcome to the Dead Man Walking podcast. I'm your host, Repeatedly Dead Fred, and I am the author of the soon to be released medical trauma memoir, The Summer I Died 20 Times, which is why I have the name Repeatedly Dead Fred. Today, we are going to be talking with the queen of cold calling, Nicole Attias. And hello, Nicole. How are you?
I am good. How are you doing,
I am
Fred?
I am great, thank you. Today we are going to be talking about how you define success. And Nicole has some interesting thoughts on that. We were chatting a little bit before we started recording, and Nicole very accurately pointed out how success is measured different ways at different times of your career. So why don't we start with that, Nicole? Why don't you tell
Yeah,
us?
yeah, let's get right into it. So,
Okay.
success to someone starting out, in sales for the very first time, like
Mhm.
a teenager or someone in their 20s, it's going to look very different from that person to someone who is midway into their career. They've tried out different industries. They've figured out what they wanted to do, they're more settled. And then, of course, someone who's way more seasoned than that, and their life goals and their views of the world are completely different. So success might mean, oh yeah, I want to make X amount of dollars at a certain time. Or success might mean, I just want to spend more time with my family. Or
Mhm.
success might mean I need a balanced life, or I just want the freedom to do the things that I want to do, right? It just means different things to different people. What's your
Mhm.
take on it? Like if someone were to ask you, Fred, how do you define it? Like, how would you define it?
I think it would have elements of everything you just talked about, uh, depending on the week. But I think success is being able to be at peace with yourself. You're not conflicted about what you're doing. You're making a good living for you, and if you have a family, for your family. But you don't feel compromised by the work you're doing,
I
and
love that because we
and
often, oh, go ahead.
it also allows you to keep growing as a person. Going with that work-life balance thing, which is really hard to achieve for most people. Uh, if you don't keep growing, you're not going to be able to evolve as a person, uh, either in your home life, in your relationships, or professionally.
Yeah, so you take a balanced approach, and that's good because I
Mhm.
think a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people definitely don't do that, and then they
Mhm.
forget, and then they realize until, something happens and they have a medical appointment. Like, oh
Mhm.
my God, now I have to like take stock of everything else besides my career or, why I'm so driven. But I
Mhm.
like what you said about internal conflict. Not having that internal conflict is it is a form of success because I think we all struggle with different things at different times.
Mhm.
And then you also said the magic word, which is growing, which is growth. If we're not growing, we're stagnating. I
Mhm.
think Bob Proctor said that.
Mhm.
If you're not growing, you're stagnating. There is no in between. Um, there is no stopping point. Either you're developing or you're stagnating,
Mhm. I think
right?
Bob was from Toronto area, wasn't he?
I
Maybe.
don't know.
Oh, okay.
I love the
Uh,
guy, he's awesome, but I don't know that he's from Toronto.
o- okay. Do you remember what your first sales job was? I, s-
Telemarketing.
oh, really? I,
Yeah.
I guess mine was sort of too. I started off, um, with selling packaged meat for freezer packages door to door and selling knife sets door to door, which was,
Oh God.
yeah, it was pretty brutal, but you learn a lot of good skills with those jobs. So you might not have been successful at the job itself, but you took away a lot of lessons that helped me be more successful down the road.
Yeah, definitely. Door to door is tough, but I think, I mean, realtors are still doing this day to day,
Hmm.
um, in this time frame. Um, but I think in the context of what you're talking about, like that's really tough. And then,
Hmm.
with my first job in telesales, which is again, it's different from cold calling
Hmm.
work. With that, it was just like you were just getting hung up on. You were just being told, like, you heard it all. It was like the nasty of the nasty of the nasty, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I did learn a lot too. I learned a lot about what works in an environment. Like I had one guy, like I was in my 20s and I
Hmm.
had a boss walking around up and down the aisles, like very old school and just
Hmm.
kind of watching everybody going up. And it was like we were in a classroom. It's like we're working, but we felt like a bunch of like imbeciles. Like it was
Hmm.
ridiculous the way they treated people. So I learned that's not how you treat people, right? You don't like light their butts on fire to make them go, because that's just not going to come across well.
Hmm.
And at the same time, like there's a fine line between motivating and doing what I just said. And like the people in the room were just trying anything and everything. I'll never forget, there was this one lady. She put on like this very provocative voice. Hi, this is, yeah, like she did anything. But the thing is, she got things happening that way. And I
Hmm.
would like, whenever I get stressed out, I just like pay attention to this lady and I'd be like, it made me laugh. It was just
Hmm.
the crazy stuff I saw. But boy, did I learn from all
Hmm.
these scenarios. So I learned what you should do and I learned what you definitely shouldn't do. And I also learned that, I was very entrepreneurial at a very young age. I learned that like I can't take crap from these people. Like I can't just sit
Hmm.
here and take crap every day, day in and day out. And sadly, many people run their organizations like that, thinking, or their departments like that, thinking that people are just going to take it. And it's just amazing how people do just take it. And I've
Hmm.
always been that type where no, I don't want to take it. I don't want to
Hmm.
take it. Like, unless I have to take it, I don't want to take it. But many people forget that they don't have to take it. There is a better way. But
Yes.
again, we're talking about very old school, situations here, mentality. And I know some of that still exists today, but that
Hmm.
was my very first, experience, I would say, in telesales, over
Hmm.
the phone sales, not face to face sales. That's a different story altogether.
Yeah, I think it still exists whether you're in telesales or not. There's just some
Mhm.
people who somehow get into management positions and they just shouldn't be. They don't
Right.
understand that some people need help and some people need to be pushed a little, and some people are just internally motivated and nothing you do for them is going to make them better.
Yeah.
So managers have to get better at reading their own people and leading them the way they need to be leaded instead of the way the manager wants to lead them.
It's true. And also the managers, I've also learned this too. If they have bosses, then they're under the gun. So middle management is under the gun to get their sales reps going because they have to report to the VP of sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if their people aren't doing what they're supposed to do, then they're under the gun. So everybody's under the gun. And that's like a pressure cooking system. That's like a pressure
Mm-hmm.
cooker environment. And I think it'll only work so long so far with certain types of people. And other people will just either burn out or check out. Right?
Yeah, yeah, you'll have tremendous employee turnover, and that just drives up your training costs and continuity and everything like that. So
Yeah.
it's not ideal. So
No.
um, I've worked in a couple of pretty high end um, phone rooms. So I worked at American Express for a while, and
Oh,
they're you know I'm sure more advanced now than they were back then, but everything was recorded and they had companies hired to listen to every customer interaction and everything was measured
Mm-hmm.
and possibly over measured. You know, if you took 3.5 minutes to go to the washroom instead of 3 minutes, you were,
Oh my
given a,
God. Yeah,
stuff like that.
that
Or
is so
if,
annoying.
yeah, if you didn't transfer a customer properly by saying, is it okay if I transfer you? Well, I guess they're calling because they want to speak to the right person. So by default, they want to be transferred.
Right.
So it's difficult. So
Yeah.
you can get crapped on by the customer or the person you're trying to connect with, and from your own management.
That's why training exists, Brett. That's why training exists. But
Mm-hmm.
but companies have to be open to it. They can't be judgmental towards it, and it has to also be the right fit, because
Mm-hmm.
everyone has their style. Everyone has their style, and that helps with success, right? That helps with ultimately what we're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And I think also that a lot of times the training that you're providing to the salespeople doesn't match up with the sales cycle you're in. So they're looking for quick results, but you're in something, say you're selling a computer software, that might be an 18-month sales cycle. And
Mm-hmm.
you're just not going to get a yes, the first time you connect with somebody, but your manager
Yeah,
wants you to get a yes.
yeah. And sometimes they make it appear. I had one client where we were doing a ton of B2B cold calls for. Great guy, great company, but I knew that when he hired us to do these calls, oh yeah, you're gonna do, he set the bar so high,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that it was not even feasible, but he did it because that was part of his sales pitch. So he figured if he sets the bar high, then we're going to do more. And to some level that's true, but I saw his game, right? And you can only do things that are realistic. And I like that you said sales cycle because it really does make a difference, right? The time that you're
Mm-hmm.
going in, the time that you're following up, the time that you're following through, all of those steps, it is going to look different with every industry and also sometimes within a particular organization. It doesn't always look the same. It's not cookie cutter. And also,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's funny too when companies hire out facilitators to train sales. It's like, well, what can you guarantee me after we work with you? What do you guarantee here? And they only want to work with you once or twice. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
can guarantee you that I'm going to assess your people. I can guarantee you that they're going to walk away with a few good tips. I guarantee you that some are going to use those tips and then others are not. But as far as longer term objectives, you need ongoing support, right?
Mm-hmm.
But many companies, they want, like what you just said, the quick answer, the quick fix, right? The quick,
Mm-hmm.
this is what happened before we hired you, to this is what is going to happen after we hire you, which is fair, but is it realistic within such a short period of time?
Mm-hmm. It reminds me a little of when I was on the marketing side of things, and the higher ups want to know what's our return on investment on this marketing campaign. And
Mm-hmm.
you really can't assess that accurately because people see your marketing campaign at different times of life.
Right.
Um, and so they might come up across you 12 or 14 or 18 months after your campaign is ended, but you can't account for that. So, managers, stop putting so much stock in ROI and payback periods and whatever other contrived measurement systems you have, because often they don't apply.
So then what would you say they should be doing? So if that style doesn't work to measure results, then what would you advise that managers should do differently?
Managers have to look at what's historically worked. So if you've created a campaign that in 2020 helped your sales and revenue increase by 10%, over a significant period, you should be looking for something like that similar, but you can't expect every campaign to blow things out of the water. You can't expect a
Mhm.
new campaign to give you 35% or a certain retention rate or a different churn because we're just not that creative. Systems are systems, and um, they they essentially all work the same way. Um, so tone it down a bit.
Right, right. And find what works for your people. Like,
Mhm.
keep them motivated individually, I would say, and find out what really gets them going because everybody's going to be different. People respond differently, right?
Mhm. And it depends on the industry, as you said before. Financial service sales. If you're selling primarily insurance and retirement plans to households, there's a very small decision tree. Husband and wife talk about it, often in the kitchen, often in the bedroom, and you know that's great. If you're talking about selling group benefits and pensions to a company, the decision tree is so expansive, especially if you're in a bigger company, that you might have 30 people involved in the decision.
Yes.
And, you know, you'll occasionally walk in and somebody will say, yes, we're ready to change because we've had a horrible experience, with company A. And we're ready to get rid of them and move on to company B or C. Um, so, your sales cycle might end up being a week, but that's not the norm. It's what everybody talks about, but it's
Right.
certainly not the reality.
Yeah. And I think, people try to make it, they try to make things appear glamorous, right?
Mhm.
Trainers, coaches, look, I fall into that umbrella too. So I see what's going on out there. And many people like to make things look glamorous, and they're not glamorous. They're
Mhm.
not glamorous. It's hard work. It's all the follow up. It's all the, again, it's the follow up, it's the pushing, it's the introductions, it's staying in touch. It's that takes work and that takes effort and that takes time in researching the companies you're, targeting. It's not glamorous. It's not always that fun, right?
Mhm.
It's that hard work that nobody likes to talk about, or there'd be no YouTube channels. There'd be like, none of this stuff would exist,
Mhm.
because people like the glamour on YouTube. They like the glamour, on social media. They like, oh, wow, like this is the best program you're going to get, top 10 tips of whatever.
Mhm.
But that's not what it is. It's not what it is.
Yeah.
That's
When I
not day
work
to day.
when I work for London Life, probably the most difficult thing for me, outside of the cold calls themselves, was the follow up system. How do you track who you've talked to and who you're supposed to
Mhm.
get back to in 6 months? And, I'm 900 years old, so things weren't very automated at that point. Now, you've got databases and spreadsheets and everything to make it easier, but you still have to enter the data and you
Yeah.
still have to look at the data that comes up that says I'm supposed to call this person or that person. And then you get, if you're really productive, oh no, I've got 35 people I've got to get back to today. How do I deal with my actual appointments? You've
Mhm.
got that conflict. So
Yeah.
there also has to be some subtlety in how you schedule your follow-ups to make sure that you're not just overwhelming yourself in 1 week or 1 2 week period.
Well, that's where you have a good CRM in place. You have a good,
Mhm.
tech system in place. And, it does all the work for you. It prompts you,
Mhm.
you know, key in good notes. If you need to push it a day or two, no harm done. That's what all these, that's why they exist. They help a lot in the sales
Mhm.
process. They help a lot.
Do you have a particular CRM that you recommend to clients, or do they mostly
I
have
like,
their own?
no, they have their own. I mean, I've always liked using Salesforce.
Mhm.
Pipe Drive is easy. It's easy to learn, easy to use. Salesforce, I had to be taught. Um, but once you're set up there, it's amazing. Like
Mhm.
your callbacks get prompted. You could take really, I mean, you could take good notes everywhere, but
Mhm.
the systems are really good. It just
Mhm.
simplifies your life for you. So you don't have to worry about that, what you were saying, like, oh my God, I got 35 callbacks. And then I also have appointments and I'm overwhelmed. And what do I do? And no, it's all there.
Mhm.
It's all
Nice.
there. Yeah.
So I guess that's another measure of success is how easy you make your job for yourself.
Yeah.
Utilizing these tools that are out there and not saying, "Oh, I'm so old school. I'm going to still do this on index cards and
Oh
a
my
day
God.
planner."
Well, I am very old school. You would just wouldn't know it, but
Mhm.
you're right. That's kind of ancient. That's beyond old school. That's like I don't know, the 1800s or something. But um
Mhm.
but yeah, you're right. You're right. Every little element helps, whether you're in sales or not. And sticking to what does success look like? What does it look like for you at this time? What are you trying to achieve either as a new sales rep, or as someone in business for a while, or someone who's seasoned, who is looking at life very differently, you know all of that.
Mhm. So I think if I was going to boil down, my top three successes, I'll just give you one. I think your
Sure.
first measure of success, whether it's a company measure or your own internal measure, because those can be very different, um, is you have to have a positive mindset that you're going to be successful. That would be
Yep.
my number one. Because if you don't go in with that, you're battling hard upstream.
I agree. I mean, there are so many gurus out there talking about, developing that mindset. There are tons of books on this. There's Bob Proctor and his whole team. It just, you hear it over and over and over again. But I think when we're hit with challenges, we forget those simple,
Hmm.
things that we're talking about. We forget what we already know. And I think by remembering and by just, I don't know, hammering it like as a repetition and as, you know, um, just constant reminders, right,
Hmm.
is very important.
Yeah, and that goes to you always have to be upgrading and you have to
Hmm.
feed, we have to eat. As humans, we have to give ourselves nutrition, but you have to feed your brain as much as you feed your belly. And,
I love
you know,
it. Yeah.
keep using those Bob Proctors or Toastmasters or Dale Carnegie's or whatever resources you have available to you. The more you use it, the easier your life will become.
Yeah. Yeah. Whoever and whatever motivates you, whatever motivates the individual, just find
Mhm.
out what those things are and just keep doing it. And it's going to look a little bit different for everybody, but the
Mhm.
premise is still the same.
Yeah. What do you have a number one thing that you would measure success by?
A number one thing? Oh my
Yeah.
God. No. Um, a number one, oh, now you put me on the spot. Let me think about this. Um, the word that comes to mind is results.
Hmm.
It's results. And this is a tricky response that I'm giving, because if you're happy with those results, then you're going to feel successful. If you're not happy with those results, then you're going to feel, not so great. So I
Hmm.
think I think as I think this through with you now, it's results, but it's also like understanding that, okay, I'm happy in this area, maybe I'm not so happy in that area, and then working towards steps and having, like some kind of goal or some kind of strategy to get there. At least work on that so that you feel happy with your results. And I think it's
Hmm.
just all about measuring your results.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be in numbers. It doesn't have to be, oh, I made X amount of dollars. No, I'm not talking about that. It could be anything. Oh, I just did like this amazing gym workout, and you know what? I want to do more of these. I feel so much better than I did, I don't know, 2 months ago or something. Or it could be, I'm taking more time outs to do X, Y, and Z, to travel, to whatever it is,
Mhm.
whatever that goal is for you, for the individual. It's results.
I think that's an excellent point. And I think with regards to, hitting the gym more often or things like that, I think that's a perfect transition point for us to say, I think we should do another one of these sessions. We should hit the gym of Nicole and sales and talk about this again.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So I think I'm going to wrap now because we're almost out of time. So thank you, Nicole. Do you want to remind the audience what your company name is and how they can get hold of you to better
Sure.
their sales force?
Sure. It's prospect to win. So it's prospect, the number two, win. And Google us. You can follow YouTube. It's prospect to win again. Email me, Nicole@prospecttowin.com, if you have questions. And we'll leave it there.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nicole. And to all the audience out there, you lovely people, thank you for tuning in. I'd like you to ask you to like, subscribe, share, give Nicole a call, help her get your business to thrive, and just have a wonderful day. And we'll see you next time.